The Apple Watch Series 10 is here. It has the biggest display ever. It's also the thinnest Apple Watch ever, making it even more comfortable on your wrist, whether you're running, swimming, or sleeping. And it's the fastest charging Apple Watch, getting you 8 hours of charge in just 15 minutes. The Apple Watch Series 10, available for the first time in glossy jet black aluminum. Compared to previous generations, iPhone XS or later required. Charge time and actual results will vary.
Groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
Hey, I'm Logan. I'm a Sergeant First Class in the Army, and I've been lucky enough to secure one of the charity slots provided by the Lifetime Foundation for next year's Leadville 100. In order to do this, I'm looking to raise around $2,800 over the course of the next year to donate to the Lifetime Foundation. A lot of their focus is on youth movement and nutrition and conservation, among other things. And it's a really great cause, and I appreciate any help that you guys could give. And a little bit goes a long way, and it'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
In October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum, unlike any other. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a unique home of military history. The 100,000 square foot museum will house exhibits, archives, and artifacts relating to the 3,500 U.S. troops who have been awarded the medal, the nation's highest honor for valor in combat. The museum will have 31,000 square feet of galleries dedicated to U.S. troops who have received the award. The museum CEO, former Navy SEAL and NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, said the museum will focus on education as much as preservation. The building will have 5 areas dedicated to Medal of Honor winners from the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. The main gallery will be located in a central plaza under a 25,000 square foot slab of steel, which will appear to be suspended in midair. It will be supported by 5 pillars. Black Rifle Coffee is a corporate sponsor of the museum, as are the Dallas Cowboys. The museum's board also includes over a dozen major corporations and 6 Medal of Honor recipients, including David Bellavia, Patrick Brady, and Britt Slabinski. Army Staff Sergeant Bellavia was awarded the medal for clearing an entire house by himself on November 10, 2004, as a squad leader in support of Operation Phantom Fury in Fallujah, Iraq. He killed 4 enemy fighters and wounded a 5th in close quarters battle. Army Major General Brady flew and coordinated the evacuation of 51 seriously wounded men during a firefight in Vietnam in January 1968. Slabinski, a Navy SEAL chief and team leader, led a rescue team of SEALs during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan in March 2002. Slabinski and his team flew to a mountaintop ambush site to rescue Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts, who had fallen from the back of a helicopter. Slabinski led the team through almost constant combat against an entrenched Taliban force. Along with the board members, former presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama serve as honorary directors. The museum is expected to open to the public in late 2024.
All right. Welcome back.
MisFitNation. MisFitNation. The MisFitNation Show.
We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation.
Show.
Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @_MisFitNation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
All right. Welcome to the Misfit Nation show, your Thursday after dinner show. Thanks for being here with us tonight. I know a lot of you are still cleaning up in Florida. Those who were affected yesterday in Florida, our thoughts and prayers are with you. Hopefully you guys can clean up and get back to a relative normal soon. Those still going through it in Western North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee, our thoughts, our prayers are with you. We know our brother Carl is out there with Warriors in Motion. Like I said last time, over 12,000 pounds of supplies were out there, plus sweat equity, a lot of sweat equity going on up there. Not just Warriors in Motion. Save Our Allies is out there. Team Rubicon's out there. A lot of local people are out there. Greg Biffle's doing great things for God and country out there. Keep all those people in your thoughts and prayers as they go through this hard time, and our country needs to come together and help them as well. On the good news front, we did make it 2 days without losing any police officers, or at least none getting updated on our website. So that's a big up to everyone out there. Let's keep that momentum up. Tonight, we got a great guest. He's a native of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, retired from the U.S. Navy after 20 years of service to his country in various assignments, including aviation, surface, and amphibious warfare, communications, and intelligence. His time wearing U.S. uniform, red, white, and blue, came at the end of his senior year of high school in 1976, when he represented the United States at the Junior World Rowing Championships in Villach, Austria, in a double scull, 2x event. During his enlisted days, he completed his bachelor's degree and receives his commission via the Officer Candidate School in Newport, Rhode Island. He now works as an emergency management specialist with the DoD outside of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. So without further ado, let's welcome Jack Daly, U.S. Navy veteran and author of Laugh Out Loud, to the Misfit Nation. Welcome, Jack.
Rich, thanks for having me on. I greatly appreciate it.
It's awesome to have you here. It's awesome. Thank you for everything you've done for our country, from representing us in the Junior Rowing Championships through your service in the Navy, and now what you're still doing. You still work for the DoD. They still got you anchored to a desk. So thank you for everything you're doing. If you don't mind, just tell us a little more about you. I mean, I gave a pretty good snapshot there, but if you want to give a little more to the Misfit Nation, let them know more about you, and let's go.
First, I want to commend you for the lead-in. That's fantastic. That's one of the best I've seen on some of the podcasts that I've done to date. So good on you.
Thank you.
The Medal of Honor Memorial, that's fantastic. I didn't know about that before, so really glad to learn about that. So a little bit about me. I grew up in West Philadelphia. I was born in 1958. Went to school at various Catholic schools, from grade school to high school in Philadelphia. Started my rowing career, for lack of a better term, as a junior in high school. By the end of my senior year, I had made the U.S. national team for the Junior Rowing Championships in Villach, Austria, as you alluded to. Went on to college, started at Temple University in Philadelphia, moved down to Florida Institute of Technology to continue rowing. Wrong idea to go to college. Should never go to college to be a jock. That was probably my biggest mistake in life, but was able to overcome that after enlisting in the Navy in '83. Went to finish my college degree while I was on active duty. Got my commission as a surface warfare officer in Newport, Rhode Island. Did that for a very short period of time due to an injury that I experienced my first week at OCS, where I tore the ligaments in the bottom of my foot. So I went through OCS on crutches for 14 out of the 16 weeks. Got my first assignment as a surface warfare officer on the USS South Carolina a nuclear-powered guided missile cruiser out of Norfolk, Virginia. Lasted all of about 5 days on there because the injury to the foot didn't heal. And the next thing I know, I found myself in what they call a limited duty status right at the beginning of the first Gulf War. And I was chomping at the bit. I wanted to get out of that status so bad. But every doggone podiatrist I went to see, the next follow-up appointment, it was somebody else because they had shipped them over to Iraq or, to Saudi to help with the efforts over there. So finally, I ended up with some really great advice from a prior intelligence officer in the Navy who I was working with at the time. And he said, why don't you think about switching career paths and going into Intel? Well, lo and behold, that was what I had wanted to do from day one. And it just came about through hook or by crook that I got into Intel school. And my first assignment, I found myself assigned to VF-14, Fighter Squadron 14, the Top Hatters, the oldest and boldest squadron in the U.S. Navy. Their emblem even showed up in the first King Kong movie.
Oh, wow.
If you remember those biplane fighters taking on King Kong on top of the Empire State Building, it was the Top Hatters, back then called the High Hats. So a lot of history behind that squadron, and probably one of the better tours of my entire Navy career because we worked hard, we partied hard, and we played hard. And from there moved on through the intelligence assignments up until the time I retired in 2003 as an 04 or lieutenant commander in the Navy.
That's a great career, and great that you were able to laugh about the podiatrist thing. I'm sure at the time it wasn't funny. You were probably angry knowing all your brothers going over, and you were sitting back on the couch or on the bench waiting for your turn, and you had to go through every podiatrist the Navy had because they kept rotating through you. So that's a painful feeling starting over every time because they don't want to hear or read what the other doctor did.
Yeah, that's for sure. It was the frustration was quite thick at the time because one of the place where I was assigned, it was a joint Coast Guard and Navy Command Maritime Defense Zone Sector 5. And what we used to do was that ships that were deploying over to the Persian Gulf at the time, we were running against, we were doing some opposing force run-ins on them as they were departing the harbor in Norfolk. So it was pretty frustrating to go out there and do that and not be able to be part of the real story.
Not being the real game, just the seared practice squad, as they call them now in football. So
exactly.
That's a hard pill to swallow for any warrior, as they do all your training, years and years of training for you, especially because you were enlisted then officer, to go through all that training and then not be able to go. That's frustration at its max.
Yeah, it eventually worked out to the better, though.
Definitely did. I mean, you got to see the world. We talked a little bit in the green room about getting to go to Europe, not be able to see as much as you wanted to, but you got to go, and that's something the Navy you get to do when you're on those ships. You go to ports all around the world and get to see amazing things. So that's one of the big pluses of the Navy.
Yeah, that's for sure. During my enlisted days, I got to see the Pacific Fleet from San Diego all the way to almost Diego Garcia, the island. Never set foot on the island. And then in my officer days, seeing the majority of the Mediterranean and some of the Persian Gulf.
Outstanding. I mean, that's pretty much all the best spots in the world. The only thing you didn't go to is basically the coast of Africa, I guess.
Yeah, we sailed across the northern part, so that was cool.
Yeah, so you got to see something. So you got to see most of the world, most of the globe. A lot of people cannot say that unless they own
That's
the
for
yacht
sure.
themselves. So that's
Yeah.
kudos to you and all your shipmates that were able to do all those moves with you. That's outstanding. So what was your favorite, I guess, destination you got to go to with the Navy?
Wow. That's a really good one. I mean, I saw some amazing spots during my deployments. My initial deployments when I was enlisted was on a guided missile cruiser, the USS England, CG-22. And I would say during that 6-month deployment, probably the most amazing place I saw, and it had a lot to do with the people, was a small town on the southwestern coast of Australia called Albany. Much like Albany, New York, there's an Albany, Australia. And we pulled into this port, and we were the only U.S. Navy ship that had stopped there in probably, I think, 10, 15 years. And we were all in our uniforms on Liberty. And I just went for a walk to get off the ship for a while. And I came across a little girl playing in her backyard. And she came running up to me, and we struck up a conversation. And her mother came out of the house, and they owned a winery and a vineyard in Australia. So I was invited in for dinner the following night. And that was probably one of the best experiences of my entire life, was the getting to know somebody, establishing a close relationship with some foreign nationals, especially within an ally like Australia. So that one sits in my fond memory categories.
That's outstanding. And my oldest brother was on the USS Reeves. I thought it was CG-43. I guess it was like CG-24-ish. He was at
Yep.
Fukuoka, Japan, I believe it was the port he was out of. So about the same time you were in. He went in 81. So.
Okay. Yeah, I remember the Reeves very well. Yeah.
So once you said the CG, I know that nomenclature.
There you go. There aren't too many of them left anymore, for Pete's sakes.
They're going into littoral ships now, I guess they're called.
Well, I'll tell you what, the CGs, the guided missile cruisers, they came out with the Ticonderoga class in the early 80s. And I think there's only one or two that's still active in the fleet.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I live in the Gettysburg, PA area, we sponsor some chief petty officers and budding chief petty officers from the actual USS Gettysburg, which is still on the active rolls, but in a state of disrepair. Some of those folks come up here once a year to Gettysburg to do some work with the local community, particularly the fire department, the police department, and et cetera.
That's a pretty cool experience for them as well to be part of that and then learn from the knowledge that you have sitting right there, to have all your years of service to give them that knowledge. But you're basically the historic figure there for them now, because they're all kids. They weren't even born when you were probably serving. So
yeah, historic figure is probably correct. I'm on the verge of being a relic.
I was gonna say, you're the industrial guy. You're a history guy. You're a historic guy.
Right.
You're just not wearing the actual colors of the Gettysburg era. So
yeah, well, but my house is painted blue and gray, so that's the places.
that makes up for it. And now you work in emergency management for DoD. Do you like work in the operations cell, or do you do plans and such?
Yes, both. So my current assignment that is coming to an end on November 15th, because I'm finally retiring for good, is I currently work at a site called the Raven Rock Mountain Complex. I work for the Secretary of Defense, for lack of a better term. I run his underground command bunker.
Oh, Outstanding. I mean, that's another cool job you've had, and one you can write books about later on. I'm sure you can't talk a lot about it now because of it's an underground bunker, so there has to be some layer of security there.
Yeah, a few to say the very least, right?
A few biometrics, some skin to samples, and
yeah, something like that, right?
Did you have a degree in emergency management, or was it because of your leadership skills that you got the position?
It was actually as a result of 9/11, believe it or not.
Okay.
On 9/11 in 2001, I was working. I was still in active duty as an active duty naval intelligence officer. At that time, I was assigned to the Defense Human Intelligence Service, or HUMINT service, in Clarendon, Virginia, and I was in the operations directorate, but I was in the planning program shop, where, for lack of a better term, we did a lot of the budget planning in that organization and planning for future capabilities. And on September the 10th of 2001, I had just signed, sealed, and delivered the final document on a base realignment for our organization as a result of budget cuts from Congress. So I signed, sealed, and delivered that package on the 10th to the leadership for the Defense Human Intelligence Service. And we all know what took place the following morning on 9/11. So on the following day, on 9/12, I was approached by my leadership saying, hey, you just did this continuity of operations, this kind of business continuity realignment of the bases within CONUS. We have this requirement that's been put out by the White House that we have to have a continuity of operations plan per this presidential directive. Got any idea of what you can do with this? I said, well, sirs, let me take a look at what it's all about. I had never heard of continuity of operations or COOP planning. And I said, okay, let me see what I can do with this. And I broke out the various DoD manuals that I thought applied, wrote up a plan for our organization, and I was off to the races in that career field from 2001 till today, doing continuity of operations. I've done business continuity planning in the private sector. I got into IT disaster recovery planning, both in the public and private sector. At one point, I was head of global enterprise resiliency for Symantec Corporation, the company that develops the Norton security software and LifeLock. So it was a very unexpected career path for me to get into, especially, after hanging up my khakis.
I bet. But at least you found something you're comfortable doing. When you said the continuity operations, it brought me back to going for my master's at Georgetown for disaster emergency management and having to write papers on that constantly.
Yeah, there you go.
But just flashbacks back.
So what I'm doing now is still continuity of operations for DoD writ large. The job classification is emergency management specialist, because they don't have a dedicated continuity of operations planner designation within the federal government structure. So it's still the same stuff.
It'll never change. It might change titles every once in a while, but it's the same stuff. And
that's for sure.
You don't want to reinvent the wheel that often.
Yeah, that's true.
So when did you get the idea to write Laugh Out Loud?
Well, it was on a drive into work at that time in 2020. I was working for Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. I was a certified federal drug dealer, because I had joined the continuity program shop there at ICE, but they had a requirement for a position that was gapped. So I became the national program manager for medical countermeasures for ICE, meaning I oversaw the program for ciprofloxacin and doxycycline in all our field offices across the country in the event of an anthrax attack again that we experienced back in 2001 after 9/11. So I was on my way into work one morning, had Fox News turned on in the car, was listening to it, and there was a report that came on that just absolutely took me aback. And that was about the number of active duty and veteran suicides that had occurred in the year prior in 2019. And I'm telling you, Rich, I'm getting goosebumps again, just like I did that morning in the car, based on those numbers. I mean, the numbers in 2019, there were 498 active duty service members that committed suicide. When I backtracked and did the research, I found out there were an additional 198 family members, spouses, and dependents that had committed suicide. I mean, the 498 was appalling enough. The 198 was even more appalling. But the one that really put me back on my heels was the number of veteran suicides in 2019. Almost 6,500, 6,489 suicides amongst veterans. And that blew my mind. And I couldn't stop thinking about it all day long. That night, my wife and I sat down after dinner. She heard the same report repeated and looked at me and asked me, "What the heck's going on with the veterans?" I said, "Honey, I have no idea. I really have no idea. I don't understand it. I know from history that, in World War II, it was called shell shock. In Vietnam, it had another connotation. After the first Gulf War, PTSD came to the forefront, and that was in the lexicon. But I said, I have no idea what the root cause is. And I had a friend, a close friend from my squadron days, who I had been in contact with. And after he got out of the military, he went over to Iraq as a contractor. And he confided in me that he was dealing with some serious, serious demons. And I thought, well, geez, if there's anything I can do to help him out, it would be well worth whatever effort. And my wife asked me, she said, well, what got you through your darkest days? And my darkest days were as a result of a mission I was on when I was stationed on Vancouver Island in Canada in April of 1997, where I was up there on a counterintelligence mission tracking Chinese and Russian merchant vessels that were spying on our submarine operations out of the Pacific Northwest. I got on a Canadian helicopter one Friday morning. We went airborne to take pictures of one of these Russian spy vessels and learned hours later that they had fired on us with a laser. And a long story short, my retinas were fried, burned, still have the scars, still see them right now at this moment, still have the pain almost 28 years ago without relief from a Russian laser. But it was one of those incidents, Rich, that never happened.
Exactly.
It was an intelligence issue, and it was an attack on North America by Russia, who back then was believed to be no longer a Cold War foe, but they were now our friend. Well, my response to that is bullshit.
Exactly.
The Cold War never ended. It thawed out a little bit, Congress and the press and everybody else said, oh, the Cold War is over. No, it wasn't. I got the scars to prove it.
Exactly.
So that prompted me to think about what I could do. And my wife had asked me what got me through my dark days, and the word was laughter. I had to laugh at stuff because if I didn't, I was going to cry, and that was just like I might as well be pouring napalm in my eyes because every time I teared up for any reason, it was just like my eyes were on fire. So I thought, well, hell, what can I do with the word laughter? What can I do with that concept? And I had been studying and following a procedure called SAVERS from a young guy named Hal Elrod, who wrote a book called The Miracle Morning after he faced death twice in his very young life. And I thought, well, I'll turn the word laugh, into a mnemonic, just like this guy did with the word SAVERS, and make it a 5-step daily process in hopes of it becoming a coping mechanism for our vets, for anybody else out there. I mean, teen suicides are astronomical these days.
Yes.
And anybody out there suffering from any kind of a mental strain, regardless of the reasoning, to give them something as a coping mechanism, as a tool on a daily basis, whether they do it for 5 minutes or they do it for a full hour, to laugh, to remember to laugh, because the medical documentation on the benefits of laughing is actually ridiculous. I mean, there's been probably 280 some thousand books written on self-help in a variety of genres under self-help rubric. And only about 15% of those have actually been tested. And laughing is probably the number one score for people who have actually benefited from the act of laughing. It's documented. It does all kinds of good things for the human body and the psyche.
It does, and I think it cleanses your mind sometimes when you're able to laugh at things. It cleanses your mind enough to get that dark cloud out for at least a period until the next time. Then find something else from either your past or either when you stubbed your toe today, you can laugh it off because you're still walking. It hurts like hell, but you can laugh it off.
Right.
That thing's always going to jump in front of your little toe, especially. That thing hurts, but you laugh it off, and I think that's one thing a lot of the world needs to do these days is just to laugh, smile. Even smiling helps you out a lot more. It takes the same amount of muscles to smile as it does to frown. So if you smile, you feel a lot better.
It's funny, when I was in high school, the word smile, I went to a special training class in Philadelphia, and it was at Ma Bell, which is, now AT&T. Back then in the 80s, 70s, it was Ma Bell. And they sent us to a training class, and they said one of the key tactics that they taught their switchboard operators was to smile. They actually had a mirror mounted on the switchboard so that before they answered the call, they had to look at themselves in the mirror and smile, because that conveyed a pleasant answering response to the caller. And it still works to this day. I've trained people within the last 20 years. Hey, put a mirror in front of your computer, hang it on your computer, and before you answer that phone, look at yourself and smile first.
Definitely. And I think it opens you up a little more when you're smiling, or happier when you're talking to someone on the phone, especially when you've never seen it. Most of those calls are cold calls for those people.
Yeah, exactly.
They've never talked to before. It's better to go in a little happier than going in with I'm just reading this script. Today is the day I'm calling you about your bill. If you do that, I'm just going to hang up on you in a heartbeat. So,
right.
So if you come in a little happier, I'll probably listen to a little bit, then hang up on you after I say no thank you.
Exactly.
I'll say no thank you and hang up.
Yes.
So have you had any feedback on the book yet?
I've gotten some very positive feedback. It's it's on Amazon.com. It's on the variety of online websites where you can buy a book of this nature. So I have a paperback version of it, which was published in mid-January of this year. And then it was followed by an ebook version or a Kindle version. And I am currently working on the audiobook version, which I'm hoping to have out by the first of next year. So I'm not going to be a millionaire, that's for sure, as an author. Unless you're a guy like Tom Clancy, who I spoke to in the past and had a couple of conversations with and a couple of meetings with. It's tough, especially as an independent author and independent publisher. I've published my own book the first time, and I am working on my second book, which goes over. It covers the entire laser attack and attack on North America. It's called Blind Treason, and hopefully that'll be out by June of next year. Of course, the Pentagon has to review it first to make sure I'm not revealing any state secrets in the process.
Exactly, yes.
There's always those checks and balances, especially when there's been a cover-up over an attack on the United States. But so far, so good. And I'm hoping that with Blind Treason that takes off a little better than Laugh Out Loud. Although, Blind Treason is going to be more of a history/memoir. Laugh Out Loud is a book that people can use right now at this very moment to improve their mental outlook, to improve their daily lives, to improve the lives of the people around them. Because the word laugh that I used, I turned it into a mnemonic. So the letter L is laugh. Find something to laugh about. The letter A, act. Get off the sofa, go do something, exercise, walk, whatever it takes to get you out of whatever rut you might be mired in. The letter U, I equated to the word unplug. Put the devices down. Get your head out of the iPad, out of the iPhone, lift it up, look at the sky, look in front of you so you don't walk into the fountain in the mall and or walk into the light pole on the street. And then the word for the letter G, the word grow. Learn something new. Learn something you've never even thought about doing before. If it's knitting, if it's crocheting, if it's woodworking, if you want to become, your own auto mechanic, do it. Just do it. There's 1,000,001 videos on YouTube and out there on the internet that will teach you whatever you want to know about whatever you might want to learn. And then finally, the letter H for humor. Humor me, humor somebody else. Make somebody else laugh, because that is the highest order of laughter, to be able to make somebody else laugh. I mean, I'm a bit of a practical joker. I torture my wife every Halloween with plastic arachnids throughout the house,
Awesome.
The refrigerator, the freezer, on the toilet seat.
You're probably a blast on the ship.
Yeah, I get a good laugh out of it. I sleep on the sofa down in the basement as a result, and have to deal with the real arachnids. But being able to make somebody else laugh. I think of my favorite comedian, Robin Williams, and every once in a while I watch some of his appearances on YouTube, and I sit here and I laugh till I cry. It is really medicine for the well-being of the human being.
He's a Robin Williams was a great human. He came to visit us when I was in Afghanistan. About 3 weeks after I lost my soldier. My soldier was killed in Afghanistan on December 31st, 2010, and him and his entourage came. And he was walking in. And we had to escort him. And I said, "Look, Robin, I just need you to do one thing. Just give me a real loud "Good morning, Afghanistan," like he did "Good morning, Vietnam." And he looked at me and he did it, and that just made everyone's day. Everyone laughed. And just like you said, laughing makes you feel better. Everyone felt better right then, and we were able to just go back to our business.
Oh man, that's great. That's an awesome story.
He was real friendly with all the soldiers. The whole entourage was really. It's always great to have them come, especially where we were in the heat of it, and to actually have people come visit you. It's awesome.
Yeah, I have the utmost respect for those folks that do that.
Yeah. We loved it, and I'm sure if you had people come visit you on the ship, I'm not sure if they do that and still or did that while you were in, flew them out there for USO tours, whatever. That probably raised morale a lot.
Yeah, I didn't experience that necessarily, but we were in a couple of ports where we had some really good times, especially that Australia, that people treated us like we were kings.
You were royalty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So Jack, what's the best way for someone to get in contact with you? Maybe to do the same thing we're doing here, chat, or just to maybe pick your brain about how to be an author?
Yeah, really easy. So I have a website. It is www.jackdalyauthor, and that's JACK Delta Alpha Lima Yankee author.com. And there is a way to contact me through email on that site. That is probably the easiest and quickest way to get a hold of me.
Outstanding. Jack, if you can give the audience 3 things they can do tomorrow to maybe brighten their own day and brighten someone else's day, what would that be?
Rich, first and foremost, don't suffer in silence, brothers and sisters. Do not let your experiences get the better of you, whether it was in combat or whether it was in personal conflict throughout your lifetime or any point in your lifetime. Do not by any means let that get the better of you by suffering in silence. That is by far the first and foremost. Secondly, if you are suffering, reach out to somebody. It doesn't necessarily have to be a family member or a friend. If you're concerned for any reason that it might backfire on you, there are organizations, there are telephone numbers, including through the Department of Defense. There is a suicide hotline, and the numbers that called this suicide hotline last year, Rich, were beyond belief. It was over 250,000 calls last year to the hotline. And number 3, don't be afraid to reach out. There is there is no stigma. The stigma of reaching out and asking for help from anyone, it's not there. It's a false narrative that people have said, "Oh, you don't want to do that." Yep. Yes, you do. You must. You don't want to become another statistic.
Definitely. Jack, those are great pieces of advice. I put them right into the chat as you were saying them. Hopefully I spelled everything correctly while I was typing, because sometimes I get a little faster with my head than my fingers. So hopefully they understood it, and it's in the chat. It's there forever. Jack, this has been a great conversation. I'd love to meet up with you and get it in Gettysburg. Maybe you give us a tour up there. You can give my wife a guided tour up there. That way I can just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Happy to do that anytime.
Awesome, brother. Thank you for everything you've done and then you are doing, and I look forward to your next book.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rich. Thanks for having me on. I greatly appreciate it. And to all our brothers and sisters out there, God bless.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Okay.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you serve in the military? If so, you can obtain a free lifetime pass to more than 2,000 federal recreation sites. These sites are located across more than 400 million acres of public lands, including national parks, wildlife refuges, and forests. The lands host activities to fit any lifestyle: hiking, biking, fishing, camping, and much more. Gold Star families are also eligible for these free lifetime passes. Plus, they cover entrance fees for a driver and all passengers in a car, or up to 3 additional adults at sites that charge per person. Obtaining one is easy. Just go to the National Park Service website, nps.gov, or the National Park Service app.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.